Tom Wright, billion-dollar whale, the man who fooled Wall Street, Hollywood, and the world. Welcome to the riveting tale of Joe Low, the man behind one of the greatest financial heists in history. Billion-dollar whale walks you through Low's journey from a shy teenager to the mastermind of an audacious financial fraud involving billions of dollars. Along the way, discover how Low gained power, prestige, and loyalty from powerful allies like Leonardo DiCaprio and Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak. The book uncovers the complex web of deception surrounding the One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB, scandal and exposes how the world's biggest financial institutions were caught up in covering up Low's massive scheme.
Deception's Playground, Harrow School. In 1998, 17-year-old Joe Low started his term at Harrow School, one of England's most prestigious private institutions that welcomed the children of the world's elite. Low was already from a wealthy Malaysian family, but at Harrow, he found himself overshadowed by his classmates with even greater fortunes. Driven by a desire for prestige and social acceptance, Low began to lie and take increasingly greater risks, ultimately building a morally relativistic worldview that laid the foundations for his descent into the world of financial fraud, dodgy deals, and deception. Joe Low, then a pudgy and shy 17-year-old from Malaysia, arrived on Harrow School's picturesque campus in northwest London in 1998, eager to learn and grow. This renowned institution, founded in 1572, housed the children of the world's elite for a considerable fee. Harrow's esteemed alumni include 7 British Prime Ministers, an Indian Prime Minister, and 6 Middle Eastern monarchs. Unlike his classmates, Low wasn't royalty or from a political dynasty. He was the offspring of a wealthy Chinese-Malaysian businessman who had amassed a fortune in the garment industry during the 1990s. Harrow's environment of opulence, pageantry, and privilege was a stark contrast from his already comfortable upbringing, and Low felt like an insignificant fish in a vast pond. In an effort to keep up with his peers, Low spun a web of lies. He staged an elaborate deception, renting a billionaire's holiday home and yacht when his classmates visited him in Penang, Malaysia, even going so far as to replace the owner's family photos with his own. Low's ruse was so convincing that his friends soon began referring to him as the Prince of Malaysia. Low's desire for power and prestige only grew during his time at Harrow. He took bolder risks, once bluffing his way into an exclusive London nightclub using a letterhead from Brunei's embassy. Exposure to individuals like Riza Aziz, the stepson of Malaysia's infamously corrupt defense minister, Najib Razak, also shaped Low's moral compass. He adopted a morally relativistic worldview, convinced that cutting corners and engaging in corruption were justifiable if it meant getting ahead. Upon graduating in 2000, Low headed to the United States, ready to seize opportunities and use the skills and mindset he developed at Harrow. Little did he know that this would eventually lead him into a life of financial fraud, deception, and deceit, casting a long shadow over the legacy of his prestigious alma mater. Unraveling the Asian Great Gatsby. Joe Low, known as the Asian Great Gatsby, was a social climber who gained entry to elite circles through indulgent parties and strategic connections, thanks to his father's financing. At Wharton School, Low continued building a network of wealthy and powerful students, aiming to create an image of immense personal wealth. His connection to Hamad al-Wazn opened doors in Middle Eastern circles, where he met and connected with Youssef al-Otaiba. Together, they set in motion a daring plot that would result in one of the world's largest financial heists. In 2001, Joe Low joined Wharton School in Philadelphia, where instead of focusing on academics, the intelligent yet indolent young man invested his time socializing. Hosting grand, champagne-soaked soirees, often featuring sushi served on scantily clad dancers, Low quickly earned himself the nickname Asian Great Gatsby. Although seemingly disinterested in the festivities, these parties were part of Low's cunning plan, financed by his ambitious father, Larry Low. Larry understood the importance of forging connections, so he supplied Joe with sufficient funds for hobnobbing with the children of the world's elite. Gambling trips and excessive spending ingrained Low's image as a wealthy individual with money to spare. One connection of particular interest to Low was Hamad al-Wazn, son of a Kuwaiti construction tycoon. Through Wazn, Low sought entry into the world of affluent Middle Eastern families. Low followed Wazn on a trip around the Gulf states in 2003, ultimately finding himself in the United Arab Emirates. It was there that Wazn introduced Low to Youssef Al-Otaiba, a shrewd policy advisor with a Rolodex of influential clients and a talent for building connections or wasta. Despite their limited business experience, Low and Otaiba's shared ambitions generated an instant rapport. As they discussed their plans, Low and Otaiba unknowingly laid the foundation for an extraordinary scheme, one that would climax in an unparalleled financial heist. Rise of a deal-making prodigy. Khaldoun Khalifa al-Mubarak was a prolific figure in the early 2000s Emirates scene, boasting royal family connections and control over a multi-billion-dollar sovereign wealth fund. Leveraging Mubarak's influence, Joe Low emerged as a global dealmaker by orchestrating a $500 million investment into Malaysia. However, Low felt sidelined when not compensated for the deal, sparking a determination to be more involved in future transactions. In the early 2000s, one would be hard-pressed to find a more prominent name in the Emirates than Khaldoun Khalifa al-Mubarak. Not only did Mubarak have strong ties to the royal family, but he also wielded significant financial clout as the director of Mubadala, a state-owned investment company. By the time Joe Low met him, Mubarak was managing an impressive $3.5 billion in funds. After his studies at Wharton, Low established his company, Winton, as a conduit for Middle Eastern investment in Malaysia. Despite the prestigious location at the Petronas Towers, business was initially slow-going, with debts piling up and partners hard to come by. But things changed in 2007, thanks to Mubarak's influence and Low's ingenuity. The Malaysian sovereign wealth fund Khazanah Nasional sought investors for Iskandar, an economic zone near the Malaysia-Singapore border. Seizing the opportunity, Low reached out to his Emirates contacts, who appealed to Mubarak. Shortly after, Low successfully brokered a $500 million investment deal from Mubadala into Iskandar. Rather than bask in his newfound success, Low strategically stepped out of the limelight and allowed Malaysian politician Najib Razak to take credit for the deal. Razak, an ambitious figure vying for the prime minister's seat, readily took on the role. This decision cemented Low's position as a force in international deal-making and earned him a powerful ally in his homeland. However, the experience was not without its drawbacks. Frustration ensued when Khazanah refused to pay Low for his role in the Iskandar deal, ultimately fueling his resolve never to be sidelined again. Determined to play a central part in shaping future transactions, Low embarked on his next monumental deal with a renewed and unyielding spirit. Uncovering Low's political strategies. After the 2007 Iskandar deal, Low formed a strategic alliance with the rising political star Najib Razak. Seeking a project of his own, Low proposed creating a sovereign wealth fund with the help of Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin, the ruler of Terengganu, and Tim Leisner, a German-born banker. Although the plan ultimately fell through, fortune favored Low when Najib Razak became prime minister. Low now held the key to financial support for Najib's efforts to restore his party's popularity, giving Low unprecedented power and leverage. Once the 2007 Iskandar deal left Low in a shaky financial position, he compensated by forming powerful political alliances. Notably, he aligned himself with the up-and-coming Najib Razak, investing in him as a long-term asset. This proved fruitful when Najib rose to power, opening up new opportunities for Low while his own financial standing remained uncertain. Low had his eyes on creating a sovereign wealth fund, inspired by Khaldoun al-Mubarak, hoping to secure himself as its director. This venture required a significant amount of capital that he did not have. That's when Low found his answer in Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin, ruler of the oil-rich Malaysian state Terengganu. With a connection through his sister, Low was able to propose using Terengganu's future oil revenues to raise money on international markets. Initially, Mizan was hesitant about the plan. However, Low persuaded him by involving Tim Leisner, a rousing dealmaker and a prominent figure of Goldman Sachs in Asia. Eventually, Mizzen agreed to let Low handle $1.4 billion in bonds backed by Terengginu's future oil income. Yet, unexpectedly, Mizzen retracted his support. Fortuitously, Low's fortunes changed with the political landscape. During the 2008 Malaysian elections, the United Malays National Organization, UMNO, suffered an unexpected blow when ethnic Indian and Chinese voters chose the People's Justice Party. As a result, Najib Razak replaced Abdullah Ahmad Badawi as Prime Minister in 2009. Now, Low's strategic alliance with Najib gave him a golden opportunity to gain control over his dreamed investment fund. Najib needed funds to recover UMNO's dwindling popularity, and Low was perfectly positioned to provide that much-needed financial boost. Deception in Malaysia's 1MDB fund. Upon becoming Malaysia's Prime Minister in 2009, Najib Razak aimed to restore UMNO's credibility and modernize the country. To achieve these goals, he needed funding, which led to the establishment of a sovereign wealth fund named One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB. Najib joined forces with Low Taek Joe, who persuaded him to seek investment from the Middle East. 1MDB's official goals were to fund green energy, tourism, and job projects for all Malaysians. However, its hidden agenda was to serve as a political war chest. Low and a minor Saudi royal, Prince Turki bin Abdullah, orchestrated a scheme for 1MDB to partner with Petro-Saudi International, ultimately resulting in an elaborate heist. As the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak had ambitious plans for his country. He sought to regain the credibility of his political party, UMNO, and modernize Malaysia to reach the heights of other booming Asian economies. However, he faced a significant obstacle. These lofty aspirations required substantial funding. Low Taek Joe, a charismatic figure, convinced Najib that the Middle East was the key to securing investments. Together, they created a sovereign wealth fund called One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB, with Najib as the official chair and Low behind the scenes. With an overt mission to support green energy initiatives, tourism, and job creation, 1MDB aimed to achieve equal opportunities for Malaysians across all ethnic groups. Secretly, the fund also sought to bolster UMNO's political clout by financing scholarships and affordable housing in targeted areas. Enter Prince Turki bin Abdullah, an essential piece in Low's intricate plan. Posing as an influential Saudi royal, Turki introduced Najib to Petro-Saudi International, a company supposedly specializing in oil drilling. In reality, it was a front for Turki to capitalize on his royal connections. With 1MDB and Petro-Saudi joining forces, Turki offered $2.5 billion in oil deposit rights from Argentina and Turkmenistan. In return, 1MDB invested $1 billion in cash. Little did Najib know the unfathomable deception unfolding under his watch, as Low prepared to execute a grand-scale heist. The 1MDB Heist Unraveled. Using his influence as the unofficial head of 1MDB, Low strategically placed his associates within the venture, setting the stage for his ambitious plan to exploit Malaysia's resources. With J.P. Morgan Suisse's support, he established a joint venture account and enlisted a well-regarded energy analyst to validate Petro-Saudi's oil assets. By cleverly arranging an unconventional $700 million loan repayment from 1MDB to a Swiss account under Petro-Saudi's name, Low successfully siphoned significant funds into his private bank accounts, making him and his accomplices wealthy beyond imagination. As the unofficial mastermind of the Malaysian financial scheme 1MDB, Low strategically filled the venture with his cronies and associates. This was crucial for the second phase of his plan to take advantage of Malaysia's abundant resources. In September 2009, he established a joint venture account with BSI, a private Swiss bank that managed Petro-Saudi's funds. However, the bank hesitated when Low revealed his intention to take a share of the $1 billion payment from Malaysia. Swiftly pivoting, Low turned to J.P. Morgan Suisse, who proved to be more receptive to his intentions. The next obstacle was finding a credible expert to validate Petro-Saudi's oil assets. Enter Edward Morse, an independent energy analyst and former U.S. State Department employee, who validated oil concessions worth $2.5 billion in Argentina and Turkmenistan, albeit without revealing crucial details about the assets. With all the pieces now in place, Lowe orchestrated a peculiar $700 million transfer marked as a loan repayment from one MDB to a Swiss account said to be owned by PetroSaudi. Despite the many red flags, no one investigated the legitimacy of this supposed loan. Astonishingly, the 1MDB board approved the transfer of a whopping $1 billion to the joint venture in less than a month, a process that would typically take more than a year to complete. In the end, Lowe skillfully navigated murky financial territory, successfully diverting $700 million into his own private bank accounts and making off with a fortune for himself and his co-conspirators. The daylight robber. Lowe's theft wasn't a complex scheme. He blatantly transferred millions from one account to his own without interference. His no-plan tactic and reliance on improvisation led him to indulge in celebrations, spending $85 million on luxury. Seeking influence and connections, Lowe began courting celebrities, reveling in the world of show business. Lowe didn't need a convoluted Ponzi scheme or financial expertise to steal his millions. His technique was simply daylight robbery, taking millions from one account and depositing them into his own. Shockingly, neither the government nor banks tried to halt his actions. You might wonder what Lowe's course of action was, given the inevitable discovery of a massive $700 million gap in 1MDB's accounts. Truth be told, Lowe had no plan. He was accustomed to the rapid pace following 1MDB's establishment and relied on his talent for improvisation to evade trouble. In Lowe's eyes, it was time to party instead of plan. What good was wealth if not flaunted? So, he returned to the United States, where he had first refined the art of the hustle. Lowe quickly made a name for himself as one of the country's most extravagant whales, the term casinos and clubs use for their top spenders. From October 2009 to 2010, Lowe blew $85 million on alcohol, Playboy playmates, and private jet trips to Vegas, among other expenses. During college, Lowe partied as a means to connect with people who would make him rich. Already wealthy, his new pursuit was to build an empire of influence. As stories of his excessive spending spread, celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, Jamie Foxx, Usher, and OT Genesis gravitated towards Lowe. His parties, such as the luxurious poolside event in Las Vegas with caged lions and tigers, became a hub for Hollywood stars and musicians. Amidst the glamour, business remained the topic of discussion for Lowe. Specifically, show business. He was ready for his next grand venture. Unlikely alliance, DiCaprio and Lowe. Though a successful Hollywood actor, Leonardo DiCaprio yearned for the independence he couldn't achieve within the confines of the film industry. Enter Joe Lowe, a non-typical fanboy who appeared to offer DiCaprio a solution. They joined forces when DiCaprio faced challenges in funding the production of The Wolf of Wall Street, a scandalous tale mirroring Lowe's own budding fraudulent schemes. Lowe's Red Granite production company financed the film, allowing DiCaprio the creative liberty he craved, only to later unravel Lowe's true motivations. When Leonardo DiCaprio met Joe Lowe in 2010, he was already an accomplished Hollywood A-lister. A pervasive issue in DiCaprio's career, however, was his lack of independence from Hollywood studios. Lowe, unlike most fans, proposed an opportunity to change that. In 2007, DiCaprio had outbid Brad Pitt to secure the rights to Jordan Belfort's memoir, The Wolf of Wall Street. The book detailed Belfort's life of stock manipulation, embezzlement, and debauchery during the 1980s and 1990s. Although films like American Psycho and Boiler Room had previously succeeded in exposing Wall Street corruption, DiCaprio had trouble securing traditional funding in Hollywood for the R-rated script authored by Terrence Winter. Joe Lowe, an outsider to the Hollywood scene, stepped in to provide the needed financing. Establishing a production company called Red Granite, he covered the movie's costs and granted DiCaprio full creative freedom. After sending an initial payment of $1.17 million in April 2011, Lowe threw a lavish $3 million party to announce Red Granite's entrance to the film world at Cannes Film Festival, even hiring Kanye West to perform. Belfort, no stranger to fraud himself, sensed something amiss with Lowe's extravagant spending. He shared his suspicions with his wife, suggesting Lowe was running a scam. As it turned out, Belfort's instincts were correct. Lowe's involvement in a series of increasingly fraudulent deals related to the 1MDB fund would eventually come to light, echoing the very criminal exploits portrayed in the film he helped create. The Unraveling of a Billion-Dollar Heist. In 2012, Lowe orchestrated yet another deal with International Petroleum Investment Company, IPIC, a sovereign wealth fund managed by Abu Dhabi. 1MDB sent $1.75 billion to a front organization, supposedly acquiring Asian power plants, but $576 million landed in an IPIC-linked account instead. This money helped finance the film The Wolf of Wall Street, bought loyalty from Malaysian voters, and sustained Lowe's extravagant lifestyle. However, trouble lurked as Xavier Justo, former director of PetroSaudi, demanded his $2 million share for the 1MDB heist, threatening to expose the scam. After being ignored, he provided evidence to journalist Claire Recastle Brown in 2014, leading to shocking exposés and the eventual collapse of Lowe's empire. Lowe struck gold once more in 2012 by teaming up with the International Petroleum Investment Company, IPIC, a sovereign wealth fund controlled by Abu Dhabi. On May 21, 1MDB transferred $1.75 billion to an alleged front organization, supposedly for buying Asian power plants. Within days, $576 million from the transaction landed in an IPIC-connected bank account. This was yet another fabricated loan repayment that once more wound up in Lowe's possession. This influx of money played a vital role in making the Hollywood blockbuster The Wolf of Wall Street, purchasing loyalty from Malaysian voters, and funding Lowe's opulent lifestyle. However, from the shadows of Lowe's first heist, complications loomed. Xavier Justo, former director of PetroSaudi, the shell company pivotal to the 1MDB scam, demanded $2 million for his past involvement. He threatened to go public with damning evidence if his demands were unmet, but his warnings went unheeded. Malaysia was growing restless as corruption rumors spread, implicating Prime Minister Najib in Lowe's financial exploits and suggesting that 1MDB functioned as his private piggy bank. Protesters demanding reform took to the streets, but nothing changed. Without solid evidence, Najib remained untouchable. In 2014, Justo approached British investigative journalist Claire Recastle Brown with Lowe's incriminating documents, asking for $2 million in exchange. Brown, unable to meet the asking price, sought help from Tong Koyong, the owner of Malaysia's best-selling business magazine, Edge. Tong provided the funds and, in February 2015, Brown revealed her groundbreaking discovery, Heist of the Century. Subsequently, the New York Times exposed Lowe's role as an unofficial agent for Najib, buying numerous luxury properties on the Prime Minister's behalf. These revelations marked the beginning of the end for Lowe's audacious career as a global fraudster, as his schemes unraveled before the world's eyes. Power crumbles amid scandal. The discovery of Lowe's theft ignited a political struggle within Malaysia's ruling UMNO party, leading to widespread public outrage and eventual regime change. While former Prime Minister Najib unsuccessfully attempted to suppress opposition and maintain power, Malaysia's citizens chose change, voting for the Anti-Corruption Alliance of Hope in the election. Najib found himself arrested, and Lowe became a fugitive, supposedly hiding in China. The exposure of Lowe's grand theft fueled a civil war within Malaysia's ruling UMNO party. A reformist group, helmed by ex-Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, demanded Najib's resignation in a sweeping inquiry into the 1MDB fiasco. Najib, confident of weathering this political storm, merely directed Lowe to leave Malaysia before facing questions from the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee. However, the nation's temper was quickly souring. In August 2015, approximately 100,000 protesters from all walks of life took over Kuala Lumpur's streets. They voiced their fury and apprehension that 1MDB's mounting debts would drain valuable resources from education and social welfare initiatives for years to come. Najib retaliated by suppressing the protesters, sparking a 3-year wave of repression. Symbols of the Bersih or Clean movement, newspapers, and whistleblowers were targeted as discussions of 1MDB all but evaporated from the news. By May 2018, Najib gambled on steering UMNO to yet another electoral victory, but his bet failed spectacularly. The Malaysian electorate chose Mahathir's anti-corruption coalition, Pakatan Harapan or Alliance of Hope, in a historic landslide vote. For the first time, UMNO found itself displaced from the government. Fears that Najib would retaliate by using military force to overturn the election outcome proved unfounded. Seeing no other viable options, he conceded power to Mahathir. Taking over as Prime Minister, Mahathir unequivocally declared that certain individuals would have to face the consequences of their actions. Najib was the first to feel the repercussions, as anti-corruption officials arrested him on July 3, 2018. Within 24 hours, he went from being untouchable to facing the full force of justice in a courtroom. Meanwhile, during the election night, Low waited in Thailand, foolishly expecting his ally Najib's triumph. As he realized the harsh reality, Low found himself staring at potential extradition. Escaping to China, he moved stealthily within the country, eventually vanishing in Shenzhen. Low remains an international fugitive, with authorities suspecting his continued presence in China.
In the end, Zhou Lo managed to pull off one of the most extraordinary financial fraud schemes the world has ever seen, but his story is far from over. Though Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak's political career came collapsing as a result of the 1MDB scandal, Low remains at large, believed to be hiding somewhere in China. Billion-Dollar Whale serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed, hubris, and a morally relativistic worldview. As history has shown us time and time again, even the most intricate plans can only cover up deceit for so long before the truth bursts through the floodgates, bringing down empires and individuals alike.